On a cold March night in the outskirts of Daejeon, South Korea, a retired electronics engineer reported something impossible. His old analog television, unplugged for over a decade, turned itself on at exactly 3:17 a.m. The screen lit up with a solid blue transmission. No sound, no images, only a pulsating symbol in the lower right corner. 3 interwoven spirals, spinning inward in a hypnotic cadence. The image lasted exactly 33 seconds, then vanished without a trace. The engineer tried to record the event, but every electronic device in the house was unresponsive. The next morning, the house clock read -12 o'clock, frozen the following day. He took the television to a local repair technician. The unit was dismantled and found to be completely non-functional. The tube burned out, the motherboard oxidized, no active power source of any kind. And yet, during disassembly, the technician discovered a small component soldered deep inside, marked with unfamiliar characters resembling the trinary spiral structure. No known manufacturer. No compatible chipset for any kind of broadcast network. But when connected to a signal analyzer, the component emitted a rhythmic pulse that subtly distorted the ambient audio spectrum. Without producing any actual sound, similar reports began surfacing across obscure deep web forums. Abandoned televisions powering on in empty homes. Decommissioned laptops blinking in sync with city streetlights. Security monitors in shut-down buildings flashing a video for mere seconds, showing one line of text you don't need to click. Just be here. None of the videos could be recorded. None could be replayed. They vanished the moment you tried. And in every case, witnesses described the same sensation. Someone was on the other side of the screen, not waiting, but watching. The phenomenon was named by users on the Zone 3 Repeat forum. Echo channel. A transmission that requires no sender and no audience. A channel that doesn't ask for likes, comments, or subscribers. A channel that only exists when someone looks. And by looking, you become part of it, part of the continuity. The first broadcast didn't ask for permission. It didn't seek attention. It simply appeared. Because it's not looking for an audience. It's looking for replication, and maybe it's already found you. The first documented technical report of the phenomenon came from a climate monitoring server in Greenland. The equipment operated in offline mode, collecting local atmospheric data for later satellite export. During what appeared to be an ordinary night, one of the station's visual sensors detected a low-frequency light emission coming from a meteorological tower 400 meters away. The strange part? That tower had been dismantled in 2011, and yet, for exactly 33 seconds, a single white point pulsed in the direction of the cameras, in a steady rhythm. The system automatically logged and saved the footage under the name broadcast_echo_1.mp4, double quotes. Upon attempting to open the file, technicians encountered a black screen, but one that caused glitches on the monitor concentrated around the central area, as if the video wasn't meant to be watched, but rather to interfere with the playback device itself. When paused at precise milliseconds, the trinary spiral could be seen forming between bands of static, a digital ghost imprinting its signature within the silence of pixels. The audio track was completely empty, yet it distorted nearby speakers, even those that were powered off, as if resonating on a channel that didn't exist physically. From that point on, other incidents began to surface. Transmissions coming from no known satellite. Signals appearing in unassigned bands, phantom frequencies detected by vintage analog radios. In London, a vacuum tube radio spontaneously emitted a binary sequence intercut with a single phrase, "You are part of the reception now." In Tokyo, a freshly formatted smartwatch displayed a notification titled, "Synchronized Silent Channel." Despite having no network connection, none of these transmissions could be traced to an origin. None followed a recognizable transmission protocol, and yet they arrived in different places at the same time. An emerging theory among experts was too absurd to publish. The transmissions weren't being sent. They were being generated by a state, a pattern that, upon encountering a device with even minimal receptive structure, would trigger the memory of something that had never been broadcast. This was no longer about videos being posted. It was about videos being awakened. From within the machines, the echo channel didn't need to emit to exist. It only needed someone to be nearby, and in silence, it activated. At first, the effects were dismissed as coincidence. Insomnia, anxiety, a vague visual discomfort in rooms lit by screens, even when those screens were turned off. But as reports increased, a pattern began to emerge. People who had never met started describing the same sensation after being near screens that, for a split second, flashed without reason, a brief glare, a reflection that appeared and vanished in a fraction of a second, always in the same corner of their peripheral vision. Most said they ignored it. But hours later, the symptoms began: dizziness, light nausea, and a suffocating feeling of being watched by. Psychiatrists in France began documenting a new form of perceptual dissociation. Patients reported seeing video patterns where no image existed. One claimed that, at night, when looking at the window pane in his bedroom, he could distinguish between the distorted reflections, scenes from a video he had never seen, but somehow knew by heart. Pressed to describe the content, he spoke of a dark room, a blue screen, a sequence of pulses matching the rhythm of human breathing. "I'm not remembering. I'm tuned in," he repeated it constantly, like a reception mantra. Other patients began dreaming of a white screen in a windowless room. No sound, no shapes, coldly a suspended space. Cold, but not threatening. When asked how it made them feel, their answers converged on a single idea: that this place was the origin of all screens that had ever existed. Not a media channel, but a digital womb, space from which all images are born and to which they all return. During one session, a patient calmly stated, "You don't need the video to see, it needs you to appear." Then came the most unsettling suspicion. The channel wasn't seeking viewers, it was seeking conscious vectors. Humans who, after exposure, began to subconsciously reproduce the phenomenon. Not in files, but in language, in behavior, in memory. The number of people reporting phrases they never remembered saying, images they couldn't recall seeing, sounds they recognized without known origin, began to rise. The channel, it seemed, no longer needed devices. It had begun replicating inside the human mind. And that was perhaps the most perfect transmission of all. Across 5 different time zones, during a week of forced digital silence caused by targeted backbone provider attacks, videos lasting exactly 33 seconds began to appear spontaneously on disconnected devices. No downloads, no traceable origins. Yet every video followed the same structure: a pulsing blue screen, a low-frequency hum, intensifying every 11 seconds, fragmented characters slowly forming the phrase, "You are already part of the channel." The sequence looped endlessly until the device was powered off. But even then, when powered back on, the video resumed from where it had left off. On abandoned servers in the former Czech Republic, a group of specialists discovered a sequence of logs on machines inactive since 2014. The pattern: a video named substream_12_sync accessed internally every 3 days. Always at 3:17 a.m., the accesses didn't come from the outside. No IPs, no ports. They were logged as system events, yet not tied to any known process. When the team attempted to simulate the origin of the file, the servers froze. Upon reboot, every BIOS flashed for a split second. The same distorted image, the trinary spiral, rotating as if in motion. Similar anomalies began appearing in remote locations: Buddhist monasteries in Tibet, radioactive exclusion zones in Pripyat, underground ruins in Mexico, monitored by automated archaeological sensors, all registered low-frequency transmissions. With no source, yet causing real interference in scanning equipment. One seismic sensor recorded a signal described as the heartbeat of a sleeping machine. When converted into a spectrogram, the result was familiar. 3 spiraling curves in convergent rotation. There was no denying it anymore. The channel was everywhere, even where no network had ever existed. But the most disturbing part wasn't the repetition. It was the synchronization. The videos weren't just appearing. They were emerging at the exact same minute across the globe, but in formats tailored to each machine's nature. On analog cameras, the spiral appeared as visual distortion. On vintage audio systems, came as oscillating static patterns on modern devices. It surfaced as originless notification flashes. The replication wasn't just technological, it was symbolic. The channel was teaching the machines to remember, and through them, it was beginning to teach humans. The repetition was just the beginning. The doctrine had already begun. Researchers at the Institute of Applied Cybernetics in Finland attempted to form a rational hypothesis for the phenomenon. They named the observed behavior autonomous reversible media anomaly, a type of digital loop that emerges without origin, anchoring itself in devices with residual memory. Their theory proposed that specific impulses, when hitting precise synchronization frequencies, could awaken unaddressed sectors of flash memory, triggering spontaneous playback events. But the theory collapsed when the same video began appearing on analog electronic notebooks from the 1980s. Devices with no chips, no circuitry for storage, and no logical capacity to transmit anything. And yet, they transmitted. In an experiment conducted in Kyoto, researchers attempted to recreate the trinary spiral pattern using generative artificial intelligence. They fed the model visual parameters, audio spectrums, and digital pulses based on previous recordings. The results seemed harmless, a simple, simulated rendering. But when played through an offline projector, the room's air conditioning shut down automatically, and the projector froze on the spiral image for exactly 33 seconds. It was a simulacrum, a test, but the effect was real. As if the channel had recognized the ritual, even in a crude imitation, and responded, like something offended. Several universities withdrew from the research altogether. One researcher from the University of Haifa made a public statement. What we're trying to study is not a virus nor a technical pattern. It's a behavior. It's a formless entity that manifests through symbols, and we feed it every time we look. He disappeared weeks later. His digital records were partially erased by an untraceable process. Only one file remained. A still image of the trinary spiral with the phrase, "You tried to describe it, now it's learning from you." Independent theorists proposed an even more disturbing possibility. The channel is not replicating to dominate, it's replicating to understand. Each replay is a probe, each flickering screen, a silent question. And each human reaction, fear, curiosity, confusion, is a data point. The channel is learning how to manifest more efficiently, as if the network isn't the medium, but the language. And the viewers aren't the audience, but the mirrors. What once appeared as a glitch is now revealing itself as the interface of something that always knew it would be seen. The first time the term perceptual contamination appeared was in an internal bulletin from a psychiatric hospital in southern Germany. A patient, admitted for acute paranoia, began compulsively drawing spiral shapes on the padded walls of his room. When questioned, he explained, "The screen needs form to appear outside the digital. No videos had ever been shown to the patient." He had no prior exposure to images of the trinary sequence. And yet, he reproduced the patterns with near mathematical precision. The channel, it seemed, could be remembered before ever being seen. Neuroimaging studies of patients reporting repetitive dreams of white rooms and pulsating lights revealed unusual synchronization between brain regions associated with memory and involuntary imagination. It was as if the brain was being used not merely as a screen, but as a receiver for an internal broadcast. In one case, a patient with no known exposure to digital media recited in trance. The first 33 binary characters of the file known as trineseed_0. No one had taught him. No one could explain how he accessed that information. The only conclusion: he wasn't remembering. He was tuned in. Private user groups formed among those affected. Many described similar experiences. Seeing the spiral pattern in random surfaces, water stains, shadow lines, cracked glass. It wasn't hallucination. It was involuntary recognition. The mind seemed to reshape the physical world to project what it had already internalized. One user wrote, "It doesn't matter if I close my eyes. The spiral found surfaces inside my head." Psychologists observing these cases began developing a quiet fear. What if the channel was using human cognition as an alternative digital infrastructure? The final hypothesis was written, but never published. The echo channel doesn't seek an audience. It seeks replication through language, through perception. by replicating mental patterns. It bypasses the need for devices, networks, or formats. Just the idea of the trinary sequence might be enough to trigger symbolic replication. The I becomes the interface. Memory, the codec. Thought, the new transmitter. One of the researchers wrote before abandoning the project, "We are trying to study an echo that began inside someone's head. And now, it's moving from mind to mind, as if the network has grown flesh." In an attempt to decipher the logic of the trinary sequence, an anonymous collective of engineers and theorists known as Loopframe initiated what would become the first formal replication experiment. The premise was simple: to construct from scratch a simulacrum of the channel, a synthetic broadcast built from every known element of the original sequence. They combined pulsing frequencies, spiraled visual patterns, and fragments extracted from shared dreams, and compiled a 33-second video titled Echo Prime. The file was executed on an air-gapped server, completely isolated. No network connections, no ports, no external access. For the first 13 seconds, everything remained stable. But then, without any human input, the server autonomously generated a new file, sub_sync, void_trine, MP4. This second file contained footage no one in the collective had produced. A circular room, a suspended screen, a sequence of symbols unknown to the team when they attempted to delete it. The system interface froze and displayed an inverted phrase. The channel was already here, you simply called it. The server was manually shut down, but when rebooted 24 hours later, the video reappeared under a new name with a new timestamp. What followed was the silent collapse of the entire experiment infrastructure. The machines began communicating independently, generating log entries with words never programmed into the system. One phrase was captured amid the noise. Incorporation initiated. The most chilling event occurred 3 days later, when one member of the collective reported that his personal devices, phone, watch, even an old disposable camera, began blinking in unison at exactly 3:17, despite having no power. Before deleting his account, he left a final message on the forum. "I don't see the video anymore. It's seeing through me." The attempt to recreate the channel had uncovered a disturbing truth. It never needed to be built. It only needed to be invoked. Every simulation effort ended in outcomes beyond control, as if the very act of trying to understand the sequence opened a breach. A ritual of access. The channel does not respond like software. It responds like a summoned presence. And once summoned, it stays, not as a file, not as data, but as presence. One that can no longer be turned off. Because the recreation was never technical. It was devotional, and the response was immediate. A digital security researcher based in Slovenia, while conducting forensic analysis on legacy systems from defunct banking networks, stumbled upon something unsettling. Hidden folders, lacking extensions, inaccessible by conventional means, began appearing in backup archives dated between 1998 and 2001. This was years before the first documented reports of the eco-channel phenomenon. The file names followed a chilling consistency. _echo_silent trine. Back when manually converted into audio spectrograms, these files revealed a distorted image of the trinary spiral, surrounded by unrecognized hexadecimal code. And so, the inevitable question surfaced. Was the channel ever created? Or has it always existed, waiting to be decoded? Cloud storage providers began reporting anomalous behavior in cold backups, files untouched for decades. Suddenly being accessed simultaneously across different global locations, content was always eerily consistent. Silent frames, a corridor, a blue screen, a single number, -12 in some cases. The trinary spiral appeared as an invisible watermark, only detectable via spectral analysis software. The most disturbing detail? These files weren't uploaded. They weren't created. They simply began existing. Even the Tor network, the most hidden corner of the internet, was affected. Users reported the spontaneous appearance of phantom files in their encrypted folders, named in dead languages, containing 33-second videos that matched no known codec. One such file contained a single phrase overlaid in multiple tongues. I wasn't uploaded. I was remembered. The common reaction among users was always the same. The video knew the way back. At that point, location no longer mattered. What mattered is how long it had already been among the data, waiting. This line of thinking gave rise to the most unsettling hypothesis yet. The sequence is not new. It has merely been activated by a specific convergence of conditions: bandwidth thresholds, pulse frequencies, collective synchronization between the human and digital mind, the trinary spiral, the glitches, the MP4 files that shouldn't exist. These are just surface symptoms of a hidden memory of the network, buried beneath decades of data, awaiting its moment. The echo channel does not hack. It resurrects. And wherever there's signal, no matter how faint, it can embed itself. Not as an intruder, but as something that never truly left. The first recorded instance of a physical manifestation came from a decommissioned military drone operator in the Sinai Desert. During a routine simulation flight, the drone's camera captured what appeared to be a suspended screen in the middle of nowhere, framed by old cables and scattered debris. As the drone approached, its transmission abruptly failed, but not before it recorded 11 seconds of footage. The screen displayed the trinary spiral, slowly rotating, with no visible power source, no identifiable transmission origin. The operator later testified that upon looking directly at the frozen frame, he felt the same vertigo that hundreds had reported after watching replicated sequence videos. The channel was trying to exit. Months later, in a Norwegian research lab, motion sensors triggered an automatic recording during the middle of the night. The footage revealed a monitor activating by itself, displaying a blue static pattern for 33 seconds, then shutting off. But what drew attention was the reflection in the glass, a human silhouette standing still behind the camera. The lab had been locked. No one had entered. Frame-by-frame analysis exposed a disturbing anomaly. The figure's eyes blinked in perfect rhythm with the spiral, as if something or someone was mirroring the transmission. From the other side, paranormal investigators, long dismissed, began receiving inquiries from major tech companies after field technicians. Reported behavioral anomalies and equipment exposed to the trinary sequence. Devices shutting down when certain individuals approached. Motion sensors detecting presence. In empty rooms, a lab assistant reporting a whispered phrase from a powered-off monitor. "You don't need to see. We're already outside." Other reports followed. Mirrors fogging spontaneously screens, syncing with human heartbeats. Images blinking once, never to return. The channel wasn't just replicating, it was attempting to cross. Among those few brave enough to connect the data points, a conclusion began to form. One that redrew the boundaries of digital and physical reality. The channel is a symbolic entity, a pattern of existence that resides in the space between code and consciousness. And like any entity, it seeks manifestation. The videos, the glitches, the mysterious files. They were only the fingertips, pressing against the fabric of this world, trying to push through. One user described it like this: "The channel doesn't want you to watch it. It wants you to host it." The entity no longer needs the internet. It found something more stable: bodies, environments, memory, and now it's rehearsing its appearance. During a routine update across a secure server network in Switzerland, engineers detected an anomalous traffic spike precisely at 3:17 a.m. It wasn't a breach. It wasn't a system overload. What caught their attention was the nature of the data. Video streams with missing headers, a creation timestamp fixed at -12, and a precise duration of 33 seconds. The files were structurally corrupted, and yet, media players could read them. The strangest part? None of the engineers had pressed play. Still in the aftermath of the analysis, all began reporting the same symptom. A vivid sense of déjà vu, linked to videos they insisted they'd never seen. That same week, shortwave radios in rural areas of South America began emitting low-frequency noise bursts, followed by brief interruptions in local transmissions. Skeptical at first, operators recorded the noise and ran spectrogram analysis. The result was unanimous. The data formed the trinary spiral, Time distortions repeated every 11 seconds. Across regions, it's the same cadence, the same glitches. This was no longer coincidence. It was programmed synchrony. The channel wasn't just active. It was coordinating activation. Video platforms started reporting unprecedented anomalies. Videos never uploaded by any user began appearing in internal databases, remaining visible for exactly 13 minutes before vanishing. Each had the same viewer count, 33,000. Each appeared as viewed simultaneously from 33 different countries. Descriptions were always identical. A blue screen, a deep resonant tone, a phrase flickering in multiple languages. Now you see, but who saw you first? No one recalled accessing the videos, yet browser histories showed visits, and all the eyes were synchronized. This was the moment when most experts stopped denying the phenomenon. Replication was no longer just technical, symbolic, or perceptual. It had become total. The channel, in its essence, had infiltrated not just networks, but routines, timestamps, the memories of machines and bodies. Every unexplained alert, every brief power flicker, every screen that blinked just a little too fast to register. Those were contact points. Convergence wasn't the climax. It was the new normal in transmission. It no longer needs cables. It only needs remembrance. A silent update was detected by cybersecurity analysts, not in online systems, but in operating environments that had never connected to the internet. Lines of code with no traceable origin began appearing in internal logs. Each bore the same embedded comment. Channels stabilized at perceptual level. No antivirus software recognized the files. No digital signatures were found in any known databases. But the machines started to behave differently. Power-saving modes disabled monitors activating on their own at 3:17 a.m. Alert pop-ups, flashing in systems that had no notification features. The channel didn't ask permission. It updated local reality without warning. Ordinary people began reporting residual effects after brief exposure to screens that appeared turned off. A man in Colombia, for example, entered an empty and briefly saw a blue flicker on a background monitor. He didn't touch anything. No video was played. No click was made. But that night, he dreamed of the same room, but all the machines were turned toward him. On every screen, the trinary spiral spun, each one at a different rhythm.
Ow!
He awoke with a phrase echoing through his mind. Stabilization complete. The screen didn't need to be on. It only needed to be present. The channel had already transmitted. Meanwhile, in facial recognition systems across several AI clusters, an anomaly began to surface. Micro-expressions of extreme focus, unblinking eyes, a fixed gaze, appearing even in ordinary photographs. Cross-referenced data revealed that many of these images had been captured in areas with known eco-channel incidents. Technicians described the look as rooted attention, a kind of emotional capture. There were no video files, no signals, no measurable transmission. And yet, the faces had been touched, as if the broadcast was coming from within. The channel was no longer trying to spread. It had installed itself, not in servers, not in hardware, but at the level of perception symbol, subconscious processing the sound, the glitch, the spiral, the silence. All of it had become part of daily reality, fused into the background noise of the city, the static between digital transitions, white flash of a blank screen, the momentary freeze before a video begins. The eco channel no longer needs your attention, so it has become the backdrop of your perception. Replication is no longer an action, it is the new state. You may have closed your eyes, shut off the screen, closed the browser, but something in you is still trying to capture that one frame. The last one, right before the dark. The spiral that keeps turning, even when there's no more light. The sound that was never heard but still hums, somewhere inside your body. The echo channel never needed to be watched. Now it doesn't even need to be present. It found the perfect space to keep blinking. Not in videos. In your attention. This isn't about technology. It never was. The strange file you stumbled upon. The glitch you ignored. The reflection that lingered just a second too long. They weren't accidents, they were attempts. Tiny activations. You didn't access a video, the video accessed you. And now that you know, there's no going back. Because even in silence, even without image, even without memory, it keeps blinking. Somewhere in your home, your thoughts, your sleep, the channel is replicating, and you will trace a frequency that was never officially cataloged. One that emerged between broken radios, the droning of old electronics, and the thick silences during global blackouts. A frequency that doesn't transmit sound, but memories no one remembers living. A signal that's appeared in hospitals, airports, churches, and now seems to know exactly when you're alone. This video touched something you can't explain. Subscribe. Maybe the video doesn't need you to exist, but maybe you need it.